A city meeting, so if you're uncomfortable about the size of the room, I'm sorry. We had no idea who was going to show up or not. All we were doing is giving the developer, Jason Giese, the opportunity to go over his project. We're glad you're all here. So some accommodations are going to have to be made about the fact we have this many people in the hallway. We're going to try to hook up the TVs in the hallway so people can watch things out there, because this is obviously probably more than fire code allows. Okay? So bear with us a few minutes while we try to get the logistics of this whole thing squared away. And again, all we're doing is providing a forum for this dialogue. This is not ours. So any complaints about the facilities, take them up with somebody else.
Are we allowed to schedule and have this at another time in a larger venue?
Well, I think it would be very difficult on a lot of people trying to show up again.
Here's what's, let me just, with the mic, this mic works. Here's what we're gonna have to do. You folks standing are gonna have to leave the room. We're gonna, again, as Mr. Lamar was saying, because quite honestly, the people behind you can't see anything. So, and it also is a fire hazard, so you're gonna have to leave the room. We're gonna try and get it onto the TV screens out in the hallway as best we can. We have the Prescott media guy, I think, working on it.
If nothing else, the audio is going to be working out.
Right. So the audio that unfortunately he's got a slide deck, and the fire marshal that's on the way, I suspect he's not going to let you sit on those steps either. So,
Are we allowed to speak?
you know what? It's Mr. Giese's meeting, but it's a city facility, and again, it's just we're essentially loaning him the facility. It's his meeting. There's no city involved. At this point, there's no city council involvement, no city staff involvement. It is simply Mr. Giese's first public presentation of the project. I suspect that he will do many more of these in many different locations. So unfortunately, I know you folks probably have traveled downtown. We cannot have this many people standing in the room. It's just beyond fire code. So,
okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
And we'll try to see if we can get you some chairs in the hallway, and we are going to try to get the thing shown in the hallway. So just give us a couple of minutes, all right?
Jason, reschedule the meeting in a bigger facility.
The meeting is voluntary, and so is your attendance. So if you'd like to come to the next meeting because you don't like the venue, and that would be fine.
Who selected the venue?
I requested the venue.
Good shot.
I choked out the water. So the water didn't.
Yeah, we're good.
Well, and then there's a lot more outside.
I don't think it'll hurt anything. It is, but I don't need it, so it's fine.
I didn't even know I was in the
Folks, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm told that the TVs are working and so is the audio in the hallway. And so, first of all, thank you for showing up tonight. The intent of the meeting is to hold a voluntary conversation between myself and the public. I understand that there are some folks that are upset. I understand that there are some folks that are emotional. My comment would be that as long as we can maintain a civil dialogue, we'll keep talking. If folks are going to be emotional and we're gonna have outbursts, then that's counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve tonight for both of us. And then we'll have to reschedule for a different time. As Michael Lamar stated, and I guess so that we're on the record, this is a voluntary meeting that I asked to conduct and host at the city of Prescott. The reason that I asked to have the meeting is to bring forward the project, the proposal before it has actually occurred, and listen to the public as we roll into what is designed with any annexation, especially a Prop 400 annexation, as a dialogue and it's a fluid piece of business that kind of takes you where you go based on public comment and also the deal making that occurs on an annexation. And so what I have tonight is a simple set of slides that gives us the chronological order of how we get here tonight. I think it's important because there's misinformation in the public to set the record straight so there's a common base that we all start from as we move into the project. It's a question that'll be asked later, so I'm going to address it now. When do you intend to apply for annexation? The annexation should be applied for officially, hopefully by next week. We're finalizing the legal descriptions to meet state statute and state code. There are two processes that are necessary. One, there's state statute that governs an annexation that must be followed. The second process is Prop 400, which is a City of Prescott regulation. I might have gotten that wrong, but that's how I'm to conduct myself in the City of Prescott in a proposed annexation. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start walking you through the slides and give you the chronological timeline. I am going to take questions and comments. What I'd like to do is work my way through my presentation first, and then we can bounce back and forth with the slides as they pertain to the questions. And we'll just talk and discuss it. I'm going to take notes. I'm going to ask people to let me know their names when they're addressing me. You guys know my name, Jason Giese. I should know yours. And without further ado, we'll get started. The first slide, and it's kind of awkward for me to be here blocking your view. I don't know if maybe this mic works. Hello? Okay, this one works. That's a lot better. The first slide is of the ranch and how the ranch exists at the point that we took title in March of 2013. And so the previous owner of the ranch has not recorded a 36-acre subdivision or plat across all 15,000 acres. All of the legal work has been done in order to do so. As it relates to the history, this map is from approximately 2007. So that would be prior to the recession. The significance of the map is that the 36-acre parcels are allowed by right under state law. So what we haven't done since we've owned the ranch is recorded the 36-acre plat or started any development of that nature. And we've done that on purpose. Why? As it relates specifically to the land that we're talking about here tonight, we believe that its highest and best use, the place it should reside in, is Prescott, Arizona. That is a question, meaning we're applying for annexation, we're asking to be annexed. It's not a right that we hold. It's not an entitlement. And so specifically, if I can get the pointer to work, kind of gets muted out. The lower part, we'll get into it. Maybe I'm just too far away. But the lower left part of the map shows the point of rocks. The farm fields are then up to the north. Highway 89 is traversing the property east to west. And then it's easy to see the Prescott Airport and the land that we own on the east side of Granite Creek. In December of 2015, I put through a general plan amendment. What was the purpose of amending the Prescott general plan? It was to set up the property for future annexation. And so this is the original map that was presented. It was voted on by the city council. It was passed unanimously in 2015. In October of last year, I brought forward this map. And so the evolution is that we start to see lots on the map versus zoning designations, so that the amendment to the general plan is consistent with what we're proposing as far as lotting and developing the property. What I'm doing is tying together a series of events that leads up to the annexation, in essence. So in this case, we obviously have the Homestead Annexation to the south, and you can see that it says Storm. I have not been able to make a deal with the family members of Storm Ranch. We do not have a deal with them. And in fact, I intend to apply for annexation without that Storm piece as included in the annexation.
Suggestion, if we turn the lights down, it might be easy to see, and if you use your pointer, it might be easy to see.
Thank you.
The pointer doesn't work.
We'll do our best.
Oh, it does work. Yay.
So that's plus or minus 90 acres of the Storm Ranch that in October of last year I intended to have under contract by this time. That did not work out. And so when we apply for annexation, I anticipate that that property will not be included. You can see that there's two nodes. It's kind of hard to lean into this thing. I'm going to try to get a little more comfortable. There's two nodes. There's a southern node here and the northern node up here. I think that it's fairly safe to say that the reason that most of you are here has to do with the southern node and the Point of Rocks. I'm happy to talk about all of the annexation, and maybe that's something that's best left for the Q&A, and we'll just kind of see how it plays out. I can go back.
It would be good if you mentioned to everybody what the benefit to you of being annexed is.
Sure. Why would I want to be, so the question is, why would we apply for annexation into the city of Prescott? Number one, we own a water right in Watson Lake, which is just off the map here, that we intend to sever and transfer to the city of Prescott's water portfolio. It took me approximately 2 years to work with SRP through the process of validating that the water right on Granite Creek is the #1 priority on Granite Creek, and therefore supersedes SRP's water rights on the Birdie. So a logical question would be, how did that happen? There was a man named John Duke. We're the successor in interest to John Duke. John Duke built the first dam that created what we now call Watson Lake. So Watson Lake, and my facts might not be perfect here, but Watson Lake is an approximately 5,600 acre-foot impound, and our water right is 375 acre-feet of that impound. On an annual basis, just so everybody understands, we take the water off of Watson Lake and we irrigated the fields that are easy to see from Walden Farms or Center Point East. And so that's what we do with the water on an annual basis. This is just a blow up, probably best to get into that in the Q&A. And again, a blow up of the southern node. This doesn't show very well. We'll improve that prior to moving through the process. But this ends up showing lotting over the top of a Google Earth layer so that we can see topography and location. So probably, I don't have to guess much, but this is probably the slide that we want to talk about. So up to this point, what have we been doing is a question that I would ask. We've been meeting with various folks, whether that's city staff, business leaders, neighbors. I met with Joe Trudeau yesterday at the Center for Biological Diversity in order to discuss possible options for what might happen at the Point of Rocks. The fundamental at play here is that the land was purchased. The land was purchased primarily by a man named Stuart Swanson. Stuart's an American who lives in London. I'm an owner with Stuart and his brother Bart. And so the land was purchased in, actually a note was purchased in approximately 2012. We were awarded title via federal bankruptcy court in 2013, I believe in March or April of 2013. So a large sum of money was paid for the asset. I've had people ask me, well, why don't you donate the land? So the donation, it gets difficult. It's a primo piece of ground. I think that's why everybody's sitting here, right? It has a significant monetary value. I don't know that some may agree with me, some may not, but in capitalistic society in the United States of America, it has a very large value. Why? Number one, the water right that goes with this piece of land creates an asset when packaged together that is not normal in our area. And the fact of the matter is that package is something that, I'm not here to speculate on the value, but it has a significant value. Is water better used on land to the north, land to the south? Just a rational question. Would you rather live closer to the primo land or further away from it? That's, in a very simplistic way, how values start to get derived and assigned to certain assets. We are not in a position to donate the land. We are in a position that is unique because the land is owned free and clear. We are more than happy to talk about trading for the land. Historically, in the city of Prescott, open space has been purchased for cash. We're in a unique position where we look at cash, water. There's various things of value. We don't have to have cash. Frankly, everybody likes cash. But the reality of it is that what we're generally proposing is that a portion of the Point of Rocks would be traded to the city of Prescott in exchange for water. How large of a piece of property is that going to be? Well, if I sat here and said that I had any inkling tonight, I'd be lying to you. The whole reason for the annexation process is that it's a process. And as we move through that process, we will find relative value for assets like water and the Point of Rocks. Another proposal in our annexation is the end of the Prescott runway. That's an asset of value to the city of Prescott long term. We are proposing to trade about 600 acres of land to the city of Prescott. What would we be trading for? Water, roads, bridges, water storage tanks, sewer lift stations. In my world, there's a whole menu of stuff that costs money, and so it's not, it might even be more simple if I was sitting here saying we require cash. But that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is they're generally a teeter-totter as it relates to any negotiation. We're looking for fair value received for the assets that we give. It's a rational position, and it's a position that we're frankly quite lucky to be in. The other piece of this is we have the ability to master plan a very large piece of property. Normally in my career, in the past, I've lived here for 22 years. Jason owns a piece of land next to Nancy, who owns a piece of land next to Joe. And development happens incrementally as demand for the property occurs. In this case, we can look at a master plan for a very large area, take into consideration open space, trails, the potential for a city park, future growth opportunity for up at the airport, an area that drives jobs, base jobs in this area. So we can look at it on a much more holistic and complete basis than normally economic conditions just allow development to occur. So moving forward, as we annex, we make our submittal, there will be multiple public meetings. I can guarantee you there's at least 5 of them, and it won't be probably anywhere near 5 meetings, but there'll be another open house. There'll probably be 2 is my guess. There'll be 2 readings at planning and zoning at a minimum. There'll be 2 readings at city council. How long does this process take? I annexed the Dells subdivision next door to this land. It took me almost 3 years to accomplish that annexation. It was contentious. There were people upset about the trails. There were people upset about the open space. There were people upset about the water. The point that I'm making is this doesn't happen next week. This happens because there's a conversation that occurs in the public in a transparent way, and folks have the opportunity to weigh in and share their opinions, just like you've chosen to do tonight, which frankly I appreciate. It actually helps me, because at the end of the day, there might be good ideas in this room that affect the final configuration of the property if the city of Prescott votes to annex it. And that's always an if. There's no guarantee here. We spend a bunch of time, we spend a bunch of money, we put out a bunch of effort, and we roll the dice in essence. And so this is the first night where we start the process and we start to move forward. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Penny. If the annex was not approved, what is your plan B?
So there's 2 potential plan Bs, Penny, and thank you for remembering to let me know your name. The first, the easiest thing, I'm going to speak plainly. The easiest thing is for us to revert back to a 36-acre subdivision where I need no approvals from anybody because state law allows that activity, and we go sell it. So that people understand, because I've been told that some people say that they're just bluffing, they won't do that. I think most people would know where Coyote Springs is at in the room. Coyote Springs, a 36-acre parcel, is bringing $450,000 today. So I don't know what a 36-acre parcel close to town is worth, but I know it's a lot more than $450,000. That's one option, Penny. Second option would be the possibility of looking at annexing into the town of Prescott Valley instead of the city of Prescott. So those are the 2 options. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Jason, I'm Jerry Smith, and I've lived here for 77 years in July. Even when I was 2 months old. And I got my degrees over in Berkeley, and I wrote the Clean Air and the Clean Water Acts for the entire nation. And I've had these satellite going over here forever. You know, first of all, I know you've only been here 22 years, but you don't seem to understand things, and neither do the people in the city council, because they just keep annexing all these developments and everything. CWAG is one of the greatest organizations here, and if you were able to get some of the water pitches to do lawsuits that you won't believe. I think with the amount of money, I know the first owners of your property, and they worked really hard, and then when there was a recession, they lost the property to you and Mr. Swanson. And I just want to tell you, I think that you ought to give back the Point of the Rocks, the entire acreage, because you do have plenty of money. And when you talk about the capital society and everything else, for 10 years there hasn't been hardly anybody on the city council that hasn't just annexed everything that ever comes before us. It's a disgrace. We don't have the water here. We're going into a 50-year drought right now, and I know you're smart enough to know it. And I'm ashamed for all of you. Since the new mayor took over, they have annexed all the different properties around here, and I'm telling you, except for some of the property has some water rights, but you and I both know what actually is here. And I will tell you, I was on planning and zoning when Prescott Lakes came through, and nobody on the city council was even around then, or David Dan, but they had 10 months of hearings there. And the night before they were to be annexed, it was going down, and the mayor of Prescott at that time fired 4 people off planning and zoning and put in new people so it could go through. So if you think there's gonna be 2 meetings about this, you're really wrong. This town has gone from a town where people really care to a town where people just want development and money and everything else. And you and I both know the jobs aren't here. People that are coming here are retired, and it's just a joke.
I'd like to address a couple points there before I come back to you, sir. So, the Deep Well Ranch is the annexation that you're referring to.
No, I'm talking about the last 5 or 10. I sued
If
the
I could,
largest copper mine
if I
in
could
the
speak,
world.
please.
I'm just gonna say this quickly. It took us 5 years. They were gonna build the largest copper mine right at the edge of Thumb Butte, and it was gonna cover thousands of acres. And I brought in the best technical team, and I had a lot of volunteers from Rounders, Public Citizen. I spent over $1.5 million of my own money, and we stopped it. They were gonna put 2 10-lane highways straight over Thumb Butte, down through town, and there were gonna be 150 jobs where people would be living in mobiles in Skull Valley. So I do know what I'm talking about. You go.
So, to set the record straight, the Deep Well Ranch was a result of a settlement of litigation. It's a 1967 agreement between the city of Prescott, the landowner, had to do with bringing the water line into Prescott for the water that we all use every day. As it relates to the Wilkinson family and us somehow taking the property from them, the Wilkinson family sold the property for approximately $132 million. The person who bought the property, there was a seller carryback, defaulted, quit making payments. We ended up buying the note from the Wilkinson family. So we didn't take the land from the Wilkinson family. As it relates to jobs, this is a retirement area. There's no doubt about that. And I think it's safe to say that the retirees had jobs. They're in a good place, they have money, and that's great. It's positive for our community. But as it relates to a father who's raising 4 children in this town and would love to see maybe 1 or 2 be able to live here someday, I have a hard time seeing where jobs are a bad thing in this community or any other community in this country or in this world. Sir, you had your hand up.
I just had one question. Dean Schlarbaum.
Thank you, Dean.
Maybe I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that a developer had to guarantee a 100-year supply of water to the entire subdivision. Is that true? And if so, have you done that? Or can you do that?
Good question.
Why would you do that?
Why do we have to do it, or why would we do it?
Why would you do it?
The reason that a developer has to prove up a 100-year water supply is because that's Arizona state law. So, how do we do that? This is a big question, and there's a lot of different answers. As it relates to this property being annexed into the city of Prescott, City of Prescott's a designated water provider. Okay, so if we take our water, which is our asset, transferred into their portfolio, legally they can serve us back water via a water service agreement. In addition to that, we have already purchased a significant amount of extinguishment credit water that we own. The purpose of that water, all of it, would be for development and to prove up the 100-year water supply as required by Arizona Department of Water Resources. So there's state law that we have to follow in that process. Yes, sir.
Have you done that?
Oh, sorry, no. We haven't done that because we're not at the stage. If we're not annexed into the city of Prescott, then we would look for other ways to service the property with water, not via the city of Prescott. Yes, sir.
So my name's Jeff Martin. I work full-time in a field called experimental archaeology. And what we do in order to understand the past is we replicate the past, and we use natural resources to do so. When I see all this development coming in, not only the Dells, but all around, it's a serious concern, not only for water, but for land as well, and land rights. My first question is, where's the water coming from? And according to a US government study, the average American, which a lot of people don't know, use 80 to 100 gallons of water a day. That's one person. So take a family of 5 and you got 500 gallons. So we're in the desert. It's dry. Our water supply lowers. Where are we gonna find it? You can't drink oil. You can't drink anything synthetic but water. So also the archaeology. I know for a fact, because I have worked in archaeology for a long time, the Dells has a tremendous amount of archaeology, dating all the way back to pre-agriculture. So one thing that I know about development is often when artifacts are found, they don't turn them in, and they don't follow the proper code to get the land surveyed and then eventually excavated. So that's another concern of mine, and I wonder how you're going to deal with that and how your crew is going to deal with that. And the second thing, or the third thing, is what I'm asking the city council is to hold off on development, not just in the Dells, but all around us, until we find out a good solid plan, and then we can go from there. Because developing at this rapid pace, mass developing, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable for the ecosystem, it's not sustainable for water rights, and it's not sustainable for archaeology. Once archaeology is gone, it is gone forever. It does not come back. Same thing with the land. When the land is gone, you can't bring it back. When development comes in, you can't bring it back. So ask yourself, everybody here, do we want Prescott to look like the city of Phoenix, or do we want it to be wild? Because tourists come here to experience the outdoors and archaeology. They do not come here to experience another Phoenix.
So as it relates to the archaeology, we are required by Prop 400 to do an archaeological survey of the property. If there are any areas, burial sites, former ruins, there's 2 options. 1, you can preserve it, meaning leave it alone. 2, you can remediate it. It's a lengthy process, it's a federal process, it's a costly process. As I sit here today, we have not done the archaeological survey yet. That'll be part of the Prop 400 process. And as we identify sites, because there will be sites, there's sites all over Arizona, very active, we have a decision to make. I can tell you that where I lean hard is leave it alone. And so there's examples of that at Prescott Lakes and other subdivisions around the area where significant fines have been set aside and preserved for open space. Water. You know, if you're west of the Mississippi River, there's a big conversation about water going on in your life. Something that will be a continual conversation. I'm not going to sit here and inflame the crowd, but my opinions and my research on water would probably differ than most. And part of that is the practical experience of drilling a well legally in the AMA that produces a significant amount of water. And so water is something to be conserved. And so in my business, in my opinion, you know, you look at water sense, water smart type requirements or guidelines, and the next step of that is for us to use deed restrictions, a private tool, not a public tool, not required by the city of Prescott, to enhance those restrictions. We're looking at recycling and harvesting presently, and we'll continue to do that. My job is to be a good steward of the land and preserve and conserve and stretch water assets as far as we can.
So as far as the archaeology aspect, because like I said, that's a real big concern of mine. How do you know that your crew that you hire is going to respect these artifacts? Because like I said, once they're gone, they're gone. History is lost. One single piece of pottery can tell us everything about that culture that used to live there. What trade routes were there? Where the trade routes were there? And it's not just on the surface, it's deep in the ground. So when you develop, you might not see things 5 feet down, you might see them much lower.
Sure.
So, like I said, my question is what is the crew gonna do?
We hire I don't even know if the term is right, a certified archaeologist.
CRA.
I don't get to go do it, I can tell you that. We hire someone who's certified in that field to perform a study across all of the land, and they create an inventory, which you would be more familiar with than I am. And as it relates to the artifacts, they're preserved if they're major. If we're digging a sewer line someday and we come across a skeleton, the job stops. There's rules and regulations and laws that surround all of this as it pertains to our activities.
But those laws are changing. There was, a lot of people don't understand this. There was actually a bill that passed in the House and the Senate, and it's getting ready to get signed by Governor Ducey, that opens up archaeology to non-professionals. That means anybody can be an archaeologist. Anybody can dig, and that is seriously concerning with these developments. And I'll let you get back to that.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm kind of confused. Is that the land that the Peavine is on? The Peavine Trail? Is that included Peavine?
Yeah. Back over here to the leaner. So I'm going to hit you with an answer on both slides. So the Y, Iron King Trail, Peavine Trail. Okay, so that's right in the middle of our property.
And is it true, I might be wrong, did I hear that you're planning to build a hotel on there?
I'm going to click back to a slide real quick. Unfortunately, the resolution isn't great, but the answer to your question, ma'am, is that this area right here was proposed as a hotel in December of 2015. Okay, hold on one second. So I'm being asked about the Y again and its location. The Y is here. The hotel location is there, north of the Y. One at a time. I'll answer them all. Yes, sir.
A related question, if you take Doug, my name's Doug Iverson.
Thank you, Doug.
It seems to me, while many of us think the whole Dells would be a tremendous loss, something I'd like to know is how much of your building will be in the grasslands and how much of it will be in any of the area with granite outcroppings, which it seems to me would be incredibly destructive.
I'm going to go. Doug, I'm assuming you're talking south of Highway 89A on the grasslands question.
And then north of the Y or north of the Iron King, there's mostly
Got it.
grassland.
Yep.
Dells itself
Got it.
is unique.
Got it. So generally speaking, in this location here, there is a drainage coming through here that basically comes off of Glassford Hill. Above that drainage, let's say right here in this span of open space, this is the grassland area. Okay, and then this would be the rock area. make sense to you?
Granite Boulder Creek.
I've called it Boulder Creek in the past and I've been corrected, so I honestly don't know the exact name of it. But I referred to it as Boulder Creek, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Linda Myron. Can you address the issue that I've heard a lot about radon, the concerns of drilling into granite and radon being released?
Uranium-rich granite.
So, radon. We had a big article in the Courier about radon probably, 6 months ago maybe. Radon's all over the country. Radon's all over Prescott, Arizona. Whenever you're in a granite formation, the radon can seep up from underneath. When you look at the modern code book for the construction of a home, the ventilation that's required, it's not a concern. My answer to the reporter at the time when I was interviewed for that article, is that radon will be disclosed because it's the proper thing to do in our public report. So if you're a potential buyer of a lot, every lot, even if it's not next to in the subdivision, even if it's not in the granite, so to speak, would have a disclosure that would say there may be presence of radon gas.
So you have a radon mitigation system in every home?
If it's a modern home, the reality of it is the code has been developed anticipating the possibility of radon, and so in our country, just like our law is built, incidents happen, new codes, new laws, new procedures get added, and so a modern home has ventilation that would properly ventilate and allow the gas to escape instead of build up in the structure. Now there are certainly going to be people that say, I'm not going to risk it. I'm not interested. There might be radon here. That's absolutely their right. But whether we're talking Hacienda, there's areas in Williamson Valley, Granite Gardens next door, that there's radon in those rocks and people make their own decision. Yes, sir. I'll come back.
Dean Schlarbaum, I understand that if you're successful, many roads will cross the Peavine Trail and other trails, impacting hikers, bikers, sports people. How many roads do you propose to build across existing trails there?
I'm going to switch mics. So we're going to have folks come up to this mic to ask their questions so that the folks in the hallway can hear it. So I'm going to repeat the question that I was asked, which is, how many roads are generally proposed and where are they crossing the trail at? And so the answer to the question is, you're going to have to be a little creative, but you'll get it. This road links into the Dells subdivision, and it's coming from the Phippen roundabout on Highway 89 that's presently under construction. So this road would be proposed to go underneath the trail in the present location where the old Highway 89A cut underneath the Peavine Trail. It's got chain link on it, on the bridge. Everybody's generally familiar with that location. There's a road that would cut across into this, to the east underneath. I'm going to try to explain it exactly, but there's basically a giant cinder mound where the old railroad tracks were laid that's probably 40 feet tall. So the proposal would be to, again, go underneath the trail to eliminate any conflict with trail users. So both of those crossings are actually underpasses, I guess would be the best way to describe them. There is an at-grade crossing that exists today. This is the driveway generally into the Storm Ranch that we share with our neighbor. And so everybody, I think, is probably pretty familiar. Lots of folks like to use it as a shortcut to get on the trail. They're actually trespassing, but we don't send the sheriff or the cops out there to ticket anybody. So that is an at-grade trail crossing of the Peavine that exists presently that we would straighten out and reutilize. The last trail crossing, this is a bad picture for it, and this one is very difficult, is on the Iron King over in this area, that would be proposed at grade because of the way that the topography and the land lays present. So the sum total of the proposal is 4 crossings, 2 underpasses, 1 reutilization of the existing crossing at grade, 1 new crossing on the Iron King Trail at grade. Yeah, it's going to get a little inconvenient because we don't have a mic to be able to walk around.
Loud, so I can ask without a microphone.
Okay.
You're talking about all these roads crossing. Yesterday I took my kayak out at 5 o'clock, and it was gorgeous, and there were ducklings that were on one shore. What exactly do you think the draw then will be when you have cars going back and forth to the people that you're trying to sell houses to, who no longer will have the kind of beauty that you are trying to present to them as a reason to move there? My name's Joyce.
Joyce, thank you. Just so I know where you were at, not that I'm stalking you, but you were on your kayak on Watson Lake?
Yeah, Watson Lake.
Okay. So, I mean, the reality of it is you drove your car, you didn't pack your kayak over to Watson Lake, did you? How did you get?
There already is this existing roadway. You're asking to add way more.
So
what I'm asking what that's about, not about how I got there.
Well, the fundamental reality is that in America, we tend to drive our vehicles everywhere.
I ride a bicycle as well.
Okay, so do I. So, what answer would you like? There will be more traffic.
Yes, and what I'm saying that for the people that you are trying to draw there, the 1,750 times 2.5, or whatever the number is, that means a lot of cars in addition, and a lot of traffic, and a lot of noise,
Correct.
and a lot of interference to what is right now a very pristine environment, which is why we all go there.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you not gonna comment on that?
My comment is there will be more traffic as people move into the area. And it
Okay,
won't be
so-
just in this location.
So let me continue her question then. Exactly what do you estimate the traffic are? Because you have lots set out at, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, half acre, 3/4 of an acre, 2 acre, 3 acre, and 5 acre that used to be 30 and 50 acre places. And although there are some mountain bikes and hikers that do cross the Storm Road right now, it's people who are there for recreational use only or visitors to the Storm Ranch. Now, what exactly do you expect this incurs of residents to be, and how many cars coming and going a day?
There will be a traffic study performed that is required as part of the annexation to answer that question exactly.
And what is your guesstimate now is what I'm asking.
I have no idea. I'm not a traffic
How many
engineer.
houses have you got slated in there now? How many lots?
Where specifically?
In this area here, where you're gonna put the second crossing, or the first land crossing?
This map and this map would be two, different
Lower
answers.
part, so the lower part.
198 units, plus a resort.
So you have at least 2 people per house, mostly retirees, if not, and then
2.1,
some
2.2.
families, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, 2.2. So that's at least 400 cars going at least once a day out and back.
That will,
And how wide will this road be? How
we have
many
to build
lanes?
the roads to city standards based on the results of the traffic survey.
So you're gonna have, that means that you'll need, if you've got 400 coming out, if I'm correct, maybe, I don't know, the roads person isn't here, but that would probably be at least 3 lanes.
It's about 20 trips per hour on a 24-hour clock.
That's actually a lot more than 20 trips per hour.
Plus the resort.
Plus the resort. Okay, so that finishes with her question. You promised in the website that you're gonna have 25%, I believe it is, of the land available for public access. Now, looking at one of the maps you showed.
Public
where-
access is open space.
Open space, right.
Make that clear.
Okay. So you said that 25% will be open space, public access. But when I was looking at the lots and seeing where looking at that on top of the topo map, looking at it, it looks like all the part that looks like this, that, you'd have to climb up with a rope and rappel down. Sorry. So that you'd have to climb up with a rope and rappel down is the stuff that you're leaving for the public access that doesn't make it very accessible for anybody that's not a rock climber from Prescott College.
So what?
We
So
depend,
you
in
would-
this
you
city,
would
we
like-
depend on our tourism.
So what you're asking me for, presently the land is private. If
Right.
someone's using our flat land, they're trespassing.
Right, but what I'm talking about is what you're saying in your website and what you promised the city is 25% of the land would be open space land that is accessible for the public for community use, quote unquote. And yet what you're leaving in the plans as is now is not accessible because people don't have pitons and crampons and ropes and et cetera, et cetera.
Well, there's certainly people in this community that use those rocks on a daily
There
basis.
are, and that's about 1% of the community. That's so nice of you to lend that land to
So
1%.
the promise that you're talking about is actually the land development code. The land development code requires a developer under a planned area development to have a minimum of 25% open space. Presently, that number is more 35% on our mapping.
31.
Okay. When we get done with the studies, that'll grow. That's what always happens. We haven't performed the studies. What are the studies? Archaeological, traffic studies, drainage studies. There's multiple layers that get created in order to develop a piece of property. So the open space that's required is not required to be open or utilized by the city of Prescott residents. So
this community you talk about in your website and you talk to the city about is not actually this community. It's like maybe somewhere over in Tanzania.
So
I mean, that's
I'm
what you're
setting
saying
up-
to me.
What I'm telling you is there are rules and regulations that I am required to follow, and they will be followed. We will end up in excess. We will exceed those requirements.
But then you're telling me at the end of that last sentence that it's not
There is no
necessary.
requirement for me to provide open space so that anybody, not a resident of the subdivision, can use it as they see fit. So part of the challenge that we've had in the past is that our property is utilized on a daily basis by folks that don't have the right to be there.
So
It's
your
no different than
website
me.
says that we're providing 25% of this for community use for the greater community of Prescott and surrounds. Now you're telling me that these people are trespassing and that you don't have to provide any of it at all.
I'm telling you as it exists today.
So do those not conflict, those two statements not conflict
Maybe
with
they
each
do
other?
today and maybe they don't tomorrow. If we trade away the city of the point of rocks to the city of Prescott, the city of Prescott would own that land, not us. It would be a different type of open space, not privately owned, publicly owned, and that open space would be eligible for utilization by the public. During this process, we will certainly determine how much of each flavor, if you will, of open space there will be on the map, because I know that there's going to be both.
Well, I'm sure the birds will enjoy sitting on top of the rocks.
Sure, go ahead.
My name is Happy Oasis. I live in the Granite Dells, less than a quarter of a mile away from the proposed project. And I'm going to speak for a minute or two if I can, Jason. I was hiking the other day on the wonderful new trails that were built by the Over the Hill gang east of the Watson Lake, right? Incredible trails, they did a great job again. And I was out there and I came in touch with about 7 antelope. Amazing. As I was leaving that circle, a group of 4 rowdy hikers, exuberant, were coming right toward the antelope. My heart sank. There's too many people on the trails. I appreciate her opinion, and being a resident of the Granite Dells, I have another opinion, and that is, I don't want a regional park full of people because there's so much fragility right now with the flora and the fauna that I would rather have it. No, I would not rather have houses. No. I would rather leave the wildlife alone as much as possible. So I don't want a parking lot on Granite Dells Road filled with hundreds of people climbing all over the rocks and hiking more than they already are. When I moved here almost 30 years ago, the railroad track, you might have known, was a railroad. And then there was nothing on it. There was nobody on it. And almost nobody until the last 5 years, it suddenly became way too popular for our taste. Those of us who live in the Dells feel that there's way too many people out there already. Having a development is not a solution, definitely. But also having a regional park, in addition to a development, just think of what we're proposing. A regional park with a development means we've got people coming in from the north. If he does get this passed, I personally hope it is not passed, but if he does, then you're going to have 3,000 plus people coming into the Dells from the north, plus a regional park. Imagine that at Point of Rocks. So I don't know what the solution is, but that's one of my concerns. Secondly, because I've lived here a long time, who remembers when Highway 89 was through the north there? It was a 2-lane road.
Yeah.
So that's already there. I'm not saying it would be great to have a road there, but it's already there. It's fallen apart. But my 3 other concerns, which are more concerning me, one is this proposed resort. Instead of having a road on what you call Boulder Creek, but actually you probably haven't hiked around Watson Lake, that's where the real Boulder Creek is. It's named Boulder Creek. But you are, let's call it Boulder Creek to the north. Is there any way, if you got this passed, that your development could go through the Dells and leave that wildlife corridor, leave that beautiful, I understand that you're thinking, well, we won't pass over the railroad if we build under it, but when you look down there, it's absolutely magical, and it really is pristine. And if there's any way that development could have a road coming from the north, do you have access through the Dells subdivision? Do you have permission or not?
We have legal access through the Dells subdivision over the top.
Because imagine this, if you had your, I hope it doesn't pass, but if it did, if you had your Dells with a view looking in from the resort on top, or your luxury homes on top, I wouldn't want that, but as a compromise, you would be very, how do I say, very expensive for people to buy that. And then this other, I'm concerned about the Granite Dells Road because I live right off of Granite Dells Road. Are you proposing that you would have a gated community with a gate, and then you'd have 2-acre parcels with mansions there, or what are you proposing?
We are not proposing to use Granite Dells Road as a primary access point. We would be proposing that it is gated, and it would be used for a secondary access point for emergency vehicular access only.
So it wouldn't be a gated community with people driving in and out with a gatekeeper or something?
From the north, it would be gated, but the primary access would not be via Granite Dells Road.
And then the north is the 4th road. So the north, you're saying it would come down over the Iron King. If that's what you're saying? Is there any way you could avoid that?
From the north is right here.
Oh, right on the edge. So what about this road that's you propose in the east?
Over here?
Yes. What is that? That's near the Iron King.
Yep, that would be behind the gate right there.
Oh, so is there any way that could be avoided and it could just go through the north? Anyway, something to think about.
Thank you.
And one last question. I'm just looking at what it's going to look like. Thank you. Last night I rode my bicycle from the Granite Dells where I live through on the Peavine along the Iron King, and I went out to see the Jasper subdivision. And I was kind of surprised because, you know, it's the eco development, and there wasn't one shrub left, one herb, one blade of grass. And I was thinking, Jason, I say Jason because we've met before. I thought, gosh, you can do better than that. So I'm just wondering, I know a lot of people in Prescott Valley have had regrets because right now it looks like a mess. Now it might look better, but it's going to be full of houses. But it looks just devastating right now. And is that the kind of ecology, which there's nothing left of it, the eco development that you're planning to do here, like wipe out everything, or what were you thinking?
We're happy what you're referring to as a masquerade. It's a masquerade. Jasper is a masqueraded subdivision. And so it's in the middle of construction. It's not going to look like it looks today when it's complete. So at the point that the landscaping and everything goes back, the hydro seed, it will have a completely different character. It is dense. There are a lot of houses there. There's no doubt about that. But wait until we finish, which will be about a year from now, and then the finished product will be on display because you're looking at it at its worst. There's no doubt about that. As it relates to this piece of property, where are we proposing to mass grade? Up in the flatland, the former farm area. This is a mass graded subdivision right here. So the mass grading would be up in this area. We are not proposing to mass grade in this area. Yes, sir, you've been waiting patiently.
I'm David Humphrey. I live about 400 yards that way, downtown Prescott. And I've lived here for 40 some years. And somebody told me today when I told them where I was coming, and they said, all this is a way to keep people feeling like they have a voice. And you really don't have a voice until it becomes a legal voice. Now, I'm a member of Nature Conservatory and Conservancy, and they are interested in this. And they have lawyers working on it. And they don't just want to know about your project, they want to know, what about the city that said it's okay? Yes. I mean, there's a lot of bad people here. Now, you seem like a very nice man. You're polite, but there's a lot of people that okayed this to take something away that's dear to us and just say, okay, come on out. Tell us all about why you're upset. Well, we're upset because we're getting screwed.
One last question. Would it be possible to make the dollar amount that you want to make by keeping everything out of the Dells and leaving the area that's really sacred to everybody here alone, and just having your resort and having everything to the north of your resort, and just having maybe it's a different style of home or something that could still be economically feasible? And then, as somebody had said, I don't know if it's donated to the city, but instead increase your open space so it's more like 60% or something like that.
Well, you're acting like it's a done deal.
Well, I know the city council.
I'm going to go over this mic real quick. Hold on. Happy to ask a good question. There's all kinds of different types of development, and there are possibilities that could increase open space in the area. Again, it's process, it's conversation, it ends up being a negotiation. But it's not a situation where we are, we're asking to be annexed. We're not demanding anything. We can't legally. And so as the process unfolds, there could be possibilities that can be explored. I'm open to it, Stuart's open to it, to look at ways to minimize impact. I say that, and I want to be very, very clear. That's not a guarantee, that's not a promise. What it is a practical answer to a solution that's designed to get to a practical outcome. And so the possibilities can be considered, and they will be over the course of time, I'm sure of that. Yes, ma'am, you were waiting patiently.
I'm Janet Miller, and so I think it goes without saying that most of us here, do feel that the area around the Point of Rocks is pristine for many reasons, both from a ecological wildlife area as well as recreation possibilities. So I think I heard you say early on in your presentation that as part of the process, you may be, I know some people have asked you to donate land outright, and there's significant monetary value to this land, but that it sounds like you may be open to trading the land for other assets, and other assets, could be cash, could be water, could be infrastructure, other land. So is that something that you are open to, and would your timeline support the process that it might take to trade, that very sensitive area for some other type of asset, and in the negotiations that could be involved in it, and knowing that it may take more resources than the city of Prescott has, or Yavapai County, potentially the state of Arizona?
So I can't help it, but the state of Arizona has less money that they give the city of Prescott than Prescott has. I'm not trying to start a fight. The answer to your question, the direct answer is yes, we're businessmen, okay? We understand that, and we're looking for a practical solution. That practical solution certainly has a monetary agenda, goal, but there are always alternatives that can be explored. So that I'm absolutely on the record, because I'm happy to be there. Time is always of the essence once we start the process. Historically, what we see, and I'm going to pick on Mark Worth's piece of property in the Dells. It's a very sensitive piece of property. The conversation's been going on for 10 to 15 years. We won't wait around for 10 or 15 years. So if somebody has a great idea and they want to participate in the conversation, part of the reason that, in essence, I'm dropping the flag and starting the process is to flush them out of the bushes. If someone has a great idea, someone has a proposal, we're happy to listen.
Okay. So I'm thinking specifically of what the process was involved to create Red Rock State Park, where there were a series of land exchanges and negotiated deals in order to make that property available to become a park, and it involved compensation to the property owners and the parties involved in it.
So not that I'm trying to eliminate options, but federal land exchanges I am familiar with, very tough to accomplish. Congress gets to vote on them, 7 to 10 years. That's not a possibility for us. We've met with the Nature Conservancy. I met with the Center for Biological Diversity yesterday. We have met with the Game and Fish Department. There are separate pots of money out there, and it's kind of a confusing answer, but we're happy to look at possibilities that include various types of compensation. Happy was referring to a density transfer in my world. That's a form of compensation. Water is a form of compensation. Tax write-offs are a form of compensation. So we're open-minded, but my history and development and watching this community, there was one time when action happened as it related to open space, and that was after the open space sales tax was passed. And there was vigorous buying activity that occurred at that time. And so that everybody understands, my concern is we're not going to be here in a decade having the same conversation. So the time to act is now. It's my job to start that process, and someone has a great idea, we're happy to hear it.
So there is some time, just not,
There's always time, and just to give you an idea, the property won't be developed if we're successful in the annexation. I'm going to tell you it's going to take 2 years just to engineer the property. So that our development rights are something that create value. And sometimes resolutions bubble up because of action, They don't tend to bubble up when people are just talking in the coffee shop saying, did you hear what this guy had to say or what she said? So,
That makes sense.
so we're here on purpose, I guess is the bottom line.
Starting the conversation.
You got it.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right,
Thank you.
I haven't heard from either of these two.
Yeah, just real quick. Question for the town council.
Town council's not here to talk to him.
Oh,
There will be plenty of public meetings where they will be here though.
okay, well, I'll propose it. Would the council consider buying him off? And no, I know, I'm just saying in general, would you guys consider it? And a way to, I mean, you guys love taxing us, so.
I pay more taxes.
Yeah.
I would too.
Same here. You know what? I would even be willing to spend $5 to get into the Dells and take that money and buy him off.
No.
Well, it's either that or a bunch of homes.
Hi everyone, I'm Joe Trudeau, the chairman of the Save the Dells PAC. I want to thank Jason for doing this because he's not required to do this, but he has heard the call in this community that the Dells are really important, and so I know a lot of people are here tearing into him for this proposal, but let's be fair. Like he said, this is just the beginning of the process. All right. Now, another thing, I want to thank city council members, former mayor, other people who are not on the record for being here. We counted about 400 people. It's a pretty darn good turnout for something like this.
450, Joe.
450? All right, great. I stopped counting, I guess. It's a really impressive turnout, and I think it should speak to the depth of thought that the council really should engage on this project. And another example of why this requires so much thought is let's consider Happy's point that she doesn't like the regional park idea, all right? And then in contrast, is it Tana? Tana seemed to have kind of an opposite perspective. And then the gentleman who was just up, he says, I'd pay $5 to get in there. There's a lot of different ways to skin this cat. You know, we have a lot of thinking to do about this. This is the last chance Prescott will have to ever protect this piece of property. And so we don't get to have this conversation again. We've got the next 6 months to a year to think about this idea of there being too many people out there versus there being a bunch of houses versus there being a resort. And in the end, it's going to be a combination of a lot of different things, but it's important that we save the Granite Dells. In my opinion, in the opinion of the Save the Dells group, we save all of the Granite Dells, right? And there needs to be a coordinated, cohesive, systematic way of thinking about this planning effort because we don't want to really tick off people like Happy who live there and don't want to see 800 people coming through her yard every day getting lost on the way to the regional park.
They already are.
They already are. Well, she's got a trail going right to her house too, so, but I won't tell you where it is. So, thank you everyone for being here. This is just the beginning of the discussion. I hope that the city is really ready to listen to the people on this because this is a make or break moment for the city's character. We have an opportunity here we have an opportunity to create a well thought out park that can accomplish biodiversity perspectives, provide recreation and open space, provide opportunities for solitude. It doesn't have to be crisscrossed by trails. We don't have to give Chris Hosking all of the freedom in the world, you know, even though that's great. But we can do something here that is, you know, light years ahead of what a lot of cities are doing. People are moving to Prescott for the Granite Dells.
That's right.
People are. I've talked to 1,000 regular folk in this position so far. People come up to me and say, I saw the Granite Dells in a magazine, so I moved to Prescott, you know, like this guy right there. And let's nurture the possibility that we can create a healthy outdoor recreation-based economy where people are getting outside and bringing their kids outside and being active and reducing our healthcare costs and reducing stress on city services, because these parks don't cost all that much to maintain. And to Jason wants to be fairly compensated, you know? He's a businessman, they invested in the land. This is the time for us to work out these deals. We've got a huge audience right now. If anybody knows the billionaire that wants to help us out and sit down with me and Jason and make something happen, you let me know. You know where to find me. All right.
How much?
To be determined. We're not talking about that yet because honestly, there is a lot of trading and negotiation that happens between the developer and the planning and zoning and the city. Because, you know, I didn't see all of your presentation, but having talked to you and studied your materials, you know, like a developer in a planned area development is asking for a substantial investment from the city in order to facilitate his plan, which that's just how it works, right? Our position is in Save the Dells, let's get a fair shake for the taxpayer, let's get a fair shake for people who love our community, and let's make this an equitable trade, you know? I want Jason to succeed and get rich and buy a Rolls Royce and let me go for a ride in it. But I want him to do it in such a way that it doesn't compromise the Dells or the Peavine or the Iron King, and we can do that. We can really do that.
Excellent. I hope that happens. That's the best possible outcome.
Yes.
Now, I would like to appeal to the city council who's not speaking and see if you have any thoughts on that too, both of you. Anyone. I think there's one thing we totally all agree on besides what Jason just said, and that is water. Is that Steve Lamerson Jim Lamerson and Steve Blair have been on the water committee and they've been doing the best they can, but they sometimes might feel in a place of regret. I'd like the city council to never feel regret again, because I feel that development is one thing, but giving away our water should be non-negotiable. Do we all agree? Yeah. So I think that for the city council to represent the people of Prescott, that giving away water in a desert during a drought, scientists have all predicted that it's going to get worse and worse, that it is insane. And I hope that the city council will not agree to negotiating land for water. Money is one thing, but water is not negotiable.
Right.
Okay, there's a couple people that haven't had a chance. Penny, I even remember. Yes, ma'am. You haven't spoken.
Thank you. My name is Pam Bettis, and I just wanted to make a quick point. The Rails to Trails, the Peavine Trail is a Rails to Trails trail that's really unique and special. And most Rails to trails don't have the spectacular scenery and the beauty that the Peavine Trail does. And what's unique about it is so many people can use it. Even a wheelchair can go down it. I mean, people can use it, whereas that new trail that was built, and I spent a day out there helping, the new trail is much more difficult to navigate for children, for pets, for bicycles, you know, for regular gravel bikes. And the Peavine is special, and you really need to preserve it. Thank you.
So we're getting late, Penny, I won't forget about you. But I think that it's almost 6:30, we got about 7 minutes. And I think that cutting it off at 6:30 would be appropriate. So, yes, sir, I know you've been waiting too, but Penny, go ahead, because I know you're trying to wrap up. Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to understand, what are the next steps? When you started,
Sure.
you said, in the next week, we want to start the annexation process. I found out about this meeting 2 days ago.
Okay.
Right? I don't want us to miss the opportunity to have the discussions before you go down the road of annexation, because I think a lot of us are getting kind of surprised that we're so far down the road.
So I'm going to repeat the question. So the question is, when is the annexation going to start? What's the general timeline? How does it unfold? And how does the public become aware of the process? So, number one reason we're sitting here today, to make you aware of the process so that nobody can say, hey, I was out of town and I missed it. I think it's safe to say that probably for months we're going to be on the front page of the E-News, the Courier, and every other outlet around. It's going to be very difficult to miss a meeting. I would say shame on you if you missed a meeting, right? It wasn't a priority. The next piece of it goes back to just how the rules work. There is no annexation until I apply for an annexation. So it's incumbent upon me to lay down the first card, start the process from an official perspective, not only as it relates to the state law, but also city code. And then we start wading through it. There's statutory notice requirements for the neighbors. That has to do with state law. There'll be a neighborhood meeting with the neighbors. I'm guessing I've already met most of them, but we'll meet them again. There will be multiple public meetings and hearings in these chambers as the annexation winds its way through the process. Planning and zoning, for those that don't understand, will be primarily looking at land use. Is this an appropriate use of the land? Does it conform to the general plan? Are the zoning designations proper? The council will look at a bigger package, if you will, a broader look at things that ties into water, trail system, and P&Z will look at that as well. But there is a very direct and regimented process that we have to go through, and as part of that, I'm going to just speculate because there's no way for me to know. I'm going to guess and tell you there's 6 to 8 public meetings that I will be either attending and answering folks' questions from kind of both sides of the aisle, if you will. And my best guess is that it may be beneficial to have another open house. Obviously, this venue is a little small. I wasn't expecting this large of a turnout. But the meeting was called to me by me because of what I was hearing in the community, and I thought that it's just time to sit down and start talking so that people aren't scared of it, they start to understand it, and they can engage in it. Did I answer your question?
Yes, and I was looking at in terms of months, days, years.
Oh, okay.
What's your estimated time frame?
So the last Prop 400 annexation that I was involved in took me almost 3 years. There is no way for me. I'll answer it this way. I would venture to guess that the quickest this thing could be voted on would be 6 months. And it just rolls out from there. I'm going to go over to this gentleman because he's been waiting. I'll come back to you, man.
Just real quick, my name is Saul. Can you describe the resort? I haven't ever gotten
Sure.
to understand. I mean, we're not talking about lighted par 3 courses and stuff like that, are we?
Yeah, no. So when we talk about the resort, the first thing that happens is people think of the JW Marriott on the 101. Right? That's not what it's going to be. So the concept, and it is only a concept. There is no conceptual drawing of a resort at the present time. Would be something along the lines of maybe the Boulders in Carefree, if you've ever been there, where it's casitas that are basically tucked into little pockets, dark skies.
Similar to the one in Boynton Canyon.
I've never been there, so I can't help you.
I don't remember the name, but I can buy it.
Yeah. So let me give you another answer. 80 to 100 rooms at the max. So it's not a large scale type development. Yes, sir.
No golf courses?
No golf course.
Lighted tennis courts?
No. No, dark skies. I'm going to go right here because she's been waiting. Yes.
As a good neighbor gesture, would you be willing to
commit to having the next meeting like this in a forum where all of those hundreds of people who are outside and out there could come in and be a part of the conversation?
I think that's very fair. So the question is, can we get everybody included?
Will you commit to that?
Sure, I have no problem with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes?
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick, like, my name's Dad.
Thank you.
I'm a little nervous, but like on the behalf of water, like, because there seems to be this like illusion that like we can own water, you know, like humans can own water, but like water owns us, you know, because there's a limited amount of it, and we need it. Water doesn't need us, you know. So I guess what I'm saying is, if we keep building, this is like just, if we keep building and developing, there's not enough in the desert to go around eventually, whether it's, you know, your son, your daughter, your granddaughters, you know, whatever. So I just want to say that I don't know what to do, but I know that like developing more is not that way, you know. So.
Thank you.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Sandra Hansen. I've lived in Prescott for 22 years. I live in the Dexter neighborhood. When I was 14 years old, I set out on my first ever save the Bartlett estate. I didn't even know what I was doing. And it's hard for me to believe that still to this day at age 57, we are trying to talk to people about saving beautiful places. So I hope that you understand that most of the people that are here today do not want anything to do with the development that you are proposing for the Dells. I'm wondering, as a person who loves literature, how old your children are, and if you ever read them the Lorax. And if you didn't, you better pick it up. And I want to know, when this is over, how rich are you going to be? Because I make $12,000 a year, and I sustain a home in this community barely. And I can't even imagine how much money you need. And I'm very sorry to come at you hard, but this room does not want your development at all. So work with the Conservancy, work with the city, find a way that you can make money in another way than taking our Dells away from us.
That's right.
My name is Linda, and I was just going to make a request. When we have the next meeting, if you could have it in the evening time. There's so many meetings that happen that, you know, the citizens are interested in, you know, like this, but they happen during the day, and, you know, most of us are working, there's students, and we can't attend them and make our voice heard. This is really gracious and awesome to have it in the evening time. If we could do it again in the evening.
Thank you.
Also, could you create some maps that have reference points that are more visible, and maybe one map that is done graphically as opposed to just overlaying the aerials? From here, that's very hard to read.
I don't understand that graphically question. Like in 3D, are you saying?
No, not 3D.
Oh.
Don't ever do it in 3D.
So that the landmarks really stand out.
Oh, the prominent landmarks is what you're asking for.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
Reference point.
Yeah, that's easy. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Name's Judith. I'm hoping that you can delay initiating this process that you're saying you want to start by asking for annexation until there have been more meetings with more space, with more ideas, and until some people like Mr. Thoreau can figure some ways to pull together some of the alternative funding sources. Because it seems to me you've given us a challenge, but you've put such a almost threatening date on it by saying you are going to start this annexation process very soon. And that alone will keep us from getting funding from other sources and taking over what might be our part of this. I see that what you've presented to me looks like you are holding the Point of Rocks and the Dells hostage for water. And me, that's a very negative thing. But if we can somehow counter that or get the ransom that you're asking, then we need to give us a little time to get it together and put it in plastic bags and drop it off wherever you want to.
All right, I'm going with last question right here. Yes, ma'am.
I'll come up to the mic.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Michelle McFadden. I grew up in Arizona, and I've always used the Dells. When I was a child, we used to come up and swim at Granite Dells, and that was delightful. When I moved to Prescott, up from the valley, I started riding my bike there, and rode for years and hope to get back to it. Right now I have knee issues, and somebody pointed out that the Dells, or the Peavine, is one of the trails that we can actually walk when we get older. Prescott's beautiful, but everything's kind of up and down. I just kind of wanted to put things in perspective a little bit, because what we're talking about here, and I understand that you started the program about values, and I know that you mean values as far as money is concerned, but I want to talk about the other values, and the values are what it means to us. And I think those are more lasting values. But what we're looking at here is 150 homes, apparently, near Point of Rocks. There's 450 people here today. That's more than will probably live in those houses. And so what we're saying is we're going to trade this natural beauty that we have and that many of us use. Many of us have used them since we were children. And we're going to trade that for 150 houses, which is probably going to be about, 350 people, because it's probably going to be older people living there that can afford them. So that's about 350 people that are having this beautiful place to live. And to trade that for everything that all of us love just doesn't seem like a very good trade value-wise. Thank you.
All right, with that, thank you all for attending tonight. We'll certainly be out there.
Excuse me, I just want to thank city council members that did not have to be here and did not have to speak or be a part of it. They're here and they're listening, and thank you.
We'll take all of your comments into consideration as we move forward. And like I've said multiple times, we'll certainly be meeting again. Have a good evening.